The urn hit my chest with a dull thud, scattering my husband Marcus's ashes across my black funeral dress like gray snow. His mother, Diana, stood there with her perfectly manicured hands still extended from the throw, her face twisted with rage that had nothing to do with grief. "He promised it to us," she shrieked, spittle flying from her burgundy lips. "That money was meant for his family, not some gold-digging whore he married." I brushed the ashes from my dress with steady hands, carefully gathering what I could into my palm. Behind Diana, Marcus's siblings, Brett, Valerie, and Jasmine, formed a wall of designer black clothing and barely concealed greed. We were in the funeral home's private viewing room, where I'd foolishly agreed to meet them before the service, thinking we could discuss arrangements like civilized people. "I'm not signing anything," I said calmly, transferring Marcus's ashes to a small memorial pendant I'd brought for exactly this purpose. "And throwing his remains at me doesn't change that." "You were married for 3 years," Brett stepped forward, all 6'4" of him trying to intimidate me. "We've been his family for 35. That inheritance came from our grandmother. It belongs with blood." "The inheritance," I said, meeting his glare without flinching, "came from my grandmother. My Nana Rose, who died 6 months ago and left me $12 million. Which Marcus knew about when he suddenly became the perfect husband again after 2 years of affairs." "Lies," Valerie hissed. "Marcus would never." "Chase Bank records, May 13th through September 9th, I recited. "Hotel charges at the Marriott downtown every Tuesday and Thursday. Jewelry purchases that I never received. Restaurant bills for 2 at places he told me were client dinners." Should I continue? Diana's face went from red to purple. "Even if that were true, which it isn't, you drove him to it. A man has needs." "Needs," I repeated flatly. Yes, his needs were very specific. Like needing to transfer my inheritance into joint accounts. Needing me to sign a post-nuptial agreement, giving him 70% if we divorced. Needing access to my financial advisor's contact information. Because he was trying to protect your future together. Jasmine, the youngest, finally spoke. "He told us you were terrible with money. That he needed to manage things so you wouldn't waste it all." I almost laughed. Marcus had been a mid-level insurance adjuster who lived paycheck to paycheck until he met me. I'd been a financial analyst for 15 years, managing portfolios worth hundreds of millions. But his family had always believed his version of reality. Speaking of the future, Diana pulled out a manila folder from her purse. "We had our lawyer draft these papers. Power of attorney, transferring Marcus's estate, including any joint assets, to his rightful heirs." "Marcus didn't have an estate," I said. "He had debt. 63,000 in credit cards you co-signed for, Diana. Another 40,000 in personal loans from various family members. All of which I'm not responsible for, by the way, since I never co-signed. But the house is in my name only, purchased before we married. He's not even on the deed. The cars, mine, also predating the marriage. The bank accounts, separate, always have been. Marcus agreed to it in our prenup, which I'm sure he never mentioned." Brett slammed his fist on the side table, making the flowers jump. "You calculating bitch. You planned this. You probably killed him." Now I did laugh, short and sharp. "Marcus died of a cocaine overdose at his mistress's apartment. The autopsy confirmed it. The police confirmed it. His dealer confirmed it when they arrested him. What part of that suggests I was involved? You drove him to drugs." Diana was spiraling now, mascara running in black rivers. "If you'd been a better wife." "I was an excellent wife," I interrupted. "I supported him through 3 job losses. I paid for his therapy when he claimed he wanted to work on our marriage. I forgave 2 affairs that I knew about and ignored the 3 others I suspected. I stayed even when I stopped myself. Some truths weren't for them." "Even when what?" Valerie demanded. "Nothing. It doesn't matter now. Sign the papers," Brett growled, pulling out a pen. "Or things will get very unpleasant for you. More unpleasant than having my husband's ashes thrown at me at his funeral?" I pulled out my phone. Speaking of which, that assault was just recorded by the funeral home's security cameras. And the lovely conversation we're having now. They all froze, suddenly aware of the discreet cameras in the corners of the room. "You recorded us?" Jasmine whispered. "The funeral home records everything for liability purposes," I said. "But yes, I also have my own recordings. Hours of them. Including some fascinating conversations between Marcus and all of you about how to get my inheritance." You bugged our phones?" Diana sputtered. "I bugged my own home," I corrected. where Marcus had lots of interesting phone calls. Like the one where you, Diana, suggested he increase my life insurance policy. Or where Brett advised him to look into accidents that could happen to wealthy wives. The room went deadly silent. That was just talk, Brett said finally, his bravado cracking. We didn't mean. The FBI Cyber Crimes Unit thought it meant quite a lot, I said conversationally. Especially combined with the searches on Marcus's laptop for how to make death look accidental and poisons that don't show in autopsy. You're lying, Valerie whispered, but her face had gone gray. February 20th, 3:47 a.m., I recited. Marcus Googled, how much insulin kills a non-diabetic. February 21st, he researched obtaining insulin without prescription. February 22nd, he asked Brett, on a recorded line, if he still had contacts at the medical supply company. Brett stumbled backward. I didn't. I told him I couldn't help with that. Eventually, yes. After discussing prices for 10 minutes. I stood, smoothing my ash-stained dress. Don't worry. The FBI doesn't consider you accessories. Yet. That could change if you continue to harass me. We'll contest the will. Diana shrieked desperately. We'll prove you manipulated him. What will? I asked innocently. Marcus died intestate. No will at all. Which means everything he actually owned, his vintage comic book collection and his gaming computer, goes to me as his spouse. You're welcome to contest that if you'd like to spend money on lawyers for roughly $3,000 of assets. But you said the estate lawyer, the video will. Jasmine looked confused. Oh, that. I smiled for the first time since entering the room. I may have been unclear. The estate lawyer isn't here for Marcus's will. He's here for mine. Yours. Diana's voice cracked. Given recent events, I updated my will last month. I wanted to make sure my inheritance was properly protected. Mr. Morrison has video documentation of my wishes, including a detailed explanation of why certain people, specifically anyone with the last name Winters, will never see a penny of my money. The door opened as if on cue, and Henry Morrison entered. My estate lawyer was 70 years old, sharp as a razor, and had approximately zero patience for family drama. Mrs. Winters, he nodded to me, deliberately ignoring the others. Are you ready to proceed with the reading? The reading of what? Diana demanded. She just said Marcus didn't have a will. Henry looked at her over his glasses with the expression of someone examining an unpleasant insect. The reading of the restraining orders, Mrs. Winters. Your daughter-in-law has filed for protection against all of you, effective immediately. He handed out papers with efficient precision while I watched their faces cycle through confusion, rage, and finally, understanding. You can't do this, Brett said, scanning the document. We're grieving family members. Grieving family members don't typically threaten murder or assault widows with human remains, Henry said dryly. The judge found the evidence quite compelling. You're required to stay 500 feet away from Mrs. Luna Winters at all times, including at today's service. Luna, Valerie said faintly. Your name is Sarah. Sarah Luna Winters, I corrected. I've been going by Luna since Marcus died. Fresh start and all that. You planned everything, Diana said, her voice hollow. The cameras, the evidence, changing your name. You were waiting for him to die. No, I said, and for the first time, complete honesty crept into my voice. I was waiting for him to choose me. To choose our marriage over money he hadn't earned. To choose love over greed. To choose life over whatever he was chasing in those little white lines of powder. I paused at the door, looking back at the family that had made my life hell for 3 years, that had encouraged every worst impulse in the man I'd once loved. I didn't plan for Marcus to die, I continued. I planned for him to try to kill me. Because that's where it was heading, wasn't it? The Google searches, the insurance policies, the sudden interest in my daily routine and medications. I installed those cameras to protect myself. I documented everything to stay alive. And when he chose to snort enough cocaine to kill a horse instead of going through with whatever plan you all had cooked up, well, that wasn't my choice. It was his. We loved him, Jasmine said quietly, tears running down her face. No, I said sadly. You loved what you thought he could get you. Just like he loved what he thought I could give him. None of you ever loved the actual person. The man who used to write poetry in college. Who cried at dog rescue videos. Who wanted to be a teacher before you all convinced him there was no money in it. I touched the pendant holding his ashes. I loved that man. I mourned him 2 years ago when he disappeared into whoever you all turned him into. What died last week was just the shell. The service was small. Most of Marcus's friends had distanced themselves as his behavior became increasingly erratic. His family was escorted out by security when they tried to enter. I sat in the front row with my sister Emma, my best friend Keisha, and the handful of people who remembered Marcus from before. The pastor spoke about redemption and choices. I spoke about the man I'd married, not the one who'd died. We buried an empty casket. I kept his ashes in the pendant, the last piece of the real Marcus that belonged only to me. Afterward, at the reception Diana had planned but was now banned from attending, people approached me with condolences and questions. I answered honestly but briefly. Yes, it had been a difficult marriage. No, I hadn't known about the drugs until the end. Yes, I was at peace with how things turned out. What will you do now? Asked Marcus's college roommate, one of the few who'd tried to warn me about his family. Live, I said simply. Travel. Maybe go back to school for that art history degree I always wanted. Definitely therapy. Lots of therapy. And the family? What family? I asked and meant it. Marcus was my only connection to them. Without him, they're just strangers who happened to share his DNA. 6 months later, I was in Florence, standing in front of Botticelli's Birth of Venus, when my phone buzzed. Emma had sent me a news article. Local woman arrested for insurance fraud. Diana's picture stared out from the screen, looking haggard in her mugshot. The article detailed how she'd taken out life insurance policies on various family members without their knowledge, naming herself as beneficiary. The investigation had started after an anonymous tip provided evidence of forged signatures and falsified medical documents. I hadn't been the anonymous tip, though I'd suspected someone might eventually notice the patterns. Brett, maybe, or Valerie. When the wolves have no sheep left to hunt, they turn on each other. I deleted the article without reading more and turned back to the painting. Venus rose from the sea foam, reborn, leaving everything behind but her essential self. I understood the feeling. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from an unknown number. This is Jasmine. I know I'm not supposed to contact you, but I wanted you to know I'm in therapy now. Working on things. I'm sorry for everything. I hope you're happy. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back. I am. I hope you will be too. Then I blocked the number. Some bridges, once burned, needed to stay ash. The pendant around my neck caught the gallery lights, sparkling. Inside, Marcus's ashes rested against my heart. Not the man he'd become, but the one he'd been. The poet. The dreamer. The boy who'd loved me before he knew about the money. That was the Marcus I carried with me. The rest had scattered on the wind the day his mother threw his urn, dispersing into nothing like the empty promises and broken dreams of the Winters family. I was Luna now, reborn from my own ashes, walking through galleries and gardens, learning to trust again in the beauty of things that asked nothing from me but appreciation. My inheritance was safe, but more importantly, so was I. And that, I thought as I moved on to the next painting, was worth more than all the money in the world.